They say you never truly know someone until money's involved. I learned that lesson lying in a hospital bed, too weak to move, listening to my son and his wife discuss my funeral arrangements while my heart was still beating. My name is Lorraine Parker, and this is the story of how I died twice. Once when I heard what my own child said about me, and again when I realized I'd wasted decades loving someone who saw me as an obstacle instead of a mother. Before we begin, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories coming. Also, drop your country and what time you're watching this in the comments below. I love seeing where you all are tuning in from. Also, download your ebook titled Suspense and Family Drama Short Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment. Now let me take you back to where it all started falling apart. I'm 67 years old, retired nurse. Raised my son Terrence alone after his father walked out when the boy was 6. I never remarried, never even dated seriously. Everything I had went into that child. My time, my money, my dreams. I worked double shifts at the hospital for 23 years so he could have new shoes, college tuition, and a shot at something better than what I had. When you're a single black mother, people watch you differently. They wait for you to fail. They expect your son to end up another statistic. So I fought harder. I prayed louder. I made sure Terrence knew he was loved, protected, and believed in. And for a long time, I thought I'd done everything right. He was a good boy, quiet, smart, always reading thick books that made me proud even when I didn't understand them. He'd hug me tight after school and tell me I was the best mama in the world. Those words kept me going through 12-hour shifts and lonely nights. But children grow up, and sometimes the world gets to them before you can protect them from it. When Terrence met Cynthia, something in my spirit whispered a warning. She had sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, the kind of woman who smiled with her mouth but never with her soul. She wore designer bags but couldn't afford basic kindness. Still, my son loved her, so I swallowed my concerns and welcomed her into our family. That was my first mistake. The second mistake? Thinking blood was thicker than greed. Because 3 weeks ago, I collapsed in my garden, and when I woke up in that hospital room, unable to speak or move properly, I heard my son say 5 words that shattered everything I thought I knew about love. It'd be easier if she died. Trust me, this story gets worse before it gets better, and you're going to want to hear every single word. Let me tell you about the Terrence I raised before you meet the man he became. When he was 8 years old, he saved up his allowance for 3 months to buy me a Mother's Day card. Not just any card, one of those expensive musical ones that cost more than a child should spend. When I opened it, tears rolled down my face. He panicked, thinking he'd done something wrong, until I pulled him close and told him he was my greatest gift. That's the boy I remember. The one who used to fall asleep on my lap while I watched the evening news. The one who'd leave little notes on the fridge, "Mama, you're the best cook in the world," even when dinner was just beans and rice because money was tight that week. I worked at County General Hospital for 23 years. Started as a nursing assistant, worked my way up to registered nurse. The hours were brutal. 12-hour night shifts that turned my days upside down and my bones to dust. But every paycheck meant Terrence could have what I never did: options. He didn't have to wonder if he'd eat that day. Didn't have to wear shoes with cardboard stuffed in the soles. Didn't have to choose between staying warm or staying fed. When he graduated high school with honors, I sat in that auditorium and ugly cried through the whole ceremony. The woman next to me offered tissues and congratulations. I told her, "That's my baby up there. I did that. Me and God, we did that together." College came next.
I took out loans, picked up extra shifts, skipped meals I told myself I didn't need anyway. My sister Ruby used to fuss at me, said I was killing myself for a boy who'd grow up and forget me. I'd wave her off. That's my son. He won't forget. Terrence studied business management, came home every holiday with good grades and big dreams. He wanted to start his own construction company, be his own boss, build something that lasted. I loved watching his eyes light up when he talked about the future. Mama, he'd say, one day I'm going to take care of you the way you took care of me. You won't have to work another day in your life. I believed him. God, I believed him. After graduation, he moved back home to save money while he got his business started. We'd sit at the kitchen table late into the night, me helping him fill out paperwork I barely understood, him explaining his plans with the kind of passion that makes a mother's heart swell. I dipped into my retirement savings to help him buy his first work truck. $15,000 I'd been saving for a rainy day. He hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe, promised he'd pay me back with interest. Mama, I'm going to make you proud, he whispered into my shoulder. Baby, you already do. I told him, for 2 years, it was just us against the world again. He'd come home covered in dust and sweat, and I'd have dinner waiting. We'd laugh about his difficult clients, celebrate his small victories. He landed his first major contract and took me out to dinner at a steakhouse I couldn't even pronounce the name of. Those were good days, golden days. I should have known they wouldn't last, because one autumn evening, Terrence walked through the door with a woman on his arm and a nervous smile on his face. Mama, he said, I want you to meet Cynthia. She stood there in my doorway wearing white pants and a cold smile, looking around my modest home like she was calculating its worth. Her handshake was limp, her nice to meet you even limper. Something in my chest tightened. A mother's intuition is a real thing, and mine was screaming. But when I looked at my son's face, saw how his eyes followed her every move, I swallowed that warning down like bitter medicine. After all, I'd raised him right. Surely he'd choose well. Surely.
Cynthia moved into our lives like a storm you don't see coming until the trees start bending. At first, she was pleasant enough, polite, laughed at my jokes, complimented my cooking. But there was something performative about it, like she was reading from a script titled, How to Impress Your Boyfriend's Mother. The cracks started showing during Sunday dinners. I'd always made Sunday dinner special. My grandmother's recipe for smothered chicken, mac and cheese that could make you weep, cornbread so good it didn't need butter. Terrence used to eat 3 plates and ask for leftovers to take to work. But Cynthia would sit there pushing food around her plate, talking about carbs and calories like my cooking was trying to kill her. She'd smile sweetly and say, It's delicious, Mrs. Parker, but I'm watching my figure. Terrence started eating less too. Started saying he was cutting back and trying to be healthier. My boy, who used to demolish my meals, was suddenly too good for them. Small thing, right? But small things add up. She'd interrupt me mid-sentence, not loudly, not rudely, just slide her voice over mine like I wasn't speaking at all. And Terrence? He'd turn his attention to her, let my words hang unfinished in the air. I started feeling like a ghost in my own home. 6 months into their relationship, Cynthia started talking about their future. Houses and better neighborhoods, cars that showed success, vacations to places I couldn't afford to dream about. Terrence deserves the best, she'd say, looking at me like I was evidence of the worst. I wanted to remind her that everything he had, every opportunity he'd been given came from me, from my sweat and sacrifice. But mothers aren't supposed to keep score, so I stayed quiet. The engagement happened fast. One day they were dating, the next she had a ring I knew cost more than my monthly pension. Terrence seemed happy, but there was something different in his eyes, something distant. When I asked him if he was sure, he bristled. "Why wouldn't I be sure, Mama? You don't like her? I didn't say that, baby. I just want you to be certain. I am certain, he said, but he wouldn't look at me. The wedding was small, elegant, expensive. Cynthia's family filled most of the pews, loud, flashy people who made me feel poor in my Sunday best. I sat in the front row alone, watching my son promise forever to a woman who'd never once asked me about my own life, my own stories, my own heart. During the reception, Cynthia's mother pulled me aside and said, "You must be so proud. Cynthia's really bringing Terrence up in the world." Bringing him up, as if I dragged him down? I smiled through the insult because that's what we do. We smile and survive. After the wedding, they moved into a townhouse across town. Terrence said it was closer to his job sites, more practical. I helped them move, unpacked boxes, cleaned while Cynthia directed everyone like a general commanding troops. When I left that evening, exhausted and aching, Terrence hugged me at the door. "Thanks, Mama. I'll call you soon." Soon turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. Phone calls got shorter, visits became holidays only, then just Christmas, then just phone calls on Christmas. I'd drive by their neighborhood sometimes, just to see the lights on in their windows, proof that my son still existed somewhere in this world, even if he'd forgotten I existed in his. My sister Ruby noticed the change. "He's not the same boy, Lorraine. That woman's got him twisted." "He's just busy building his life." I defended him, defended her, defended the lie I needed to believe. "At the cost of yours?" she asked. I had no answer. The truth was settling in my chest like a stone. I'd raised my son so well that he no longer needed me. And the woman he married made sure he didn't want me either. But I kept hoping, kept praying, kept believing that love had to mean something. Then my body started failing, and I learned exactly what I meant to them. Nothing. The first dizzy spell hit me on a Tuesday morning while I was watering my tomato plants. The world tilted sideways, and I grabbed the fence to steady myself. My vision blurred at the edges like someone was erasing me from the outside in. It passed after a few seconds, left me shaky but functional. I told myself it was the heat, the sun, my age catching up to me. I didn't tell Terrence. Hadn't spoken to him in 3 weeks anyway, and I wasn't about to be the needy mother who called with every little ache and pain. Cynthia would probably roll her eyes, make some comment about old people and their problems. The second spell came 4 days later. I was reaching for a can of soup in my kitchen when my legs went weak. I caught myself on the counter, heart racing, palms sweating. This time it took longer to pass. Ruby called that evening, heard something off in my voice. "You okay, Lorraine?" "Just tired," I lied. "You sure? You sound funny." "I'm fine. Getting old, that's all." We laughed, but mine sounded hollow, even to my own ears. The third time, I didn't catch myself. I was in my garden again, my happy place, the one spot where I still felt useful. My tomatoes were coming in beautiful that year, fat and red and perfect. I was picking them for canning when the ground rushed up to meet me. No warning, no chance to grab anything, just my face in the dirt and my body refusing to move. I remember thinking how stupid this was, how embarrassing. Lying in my own garden like a fallen scarecrow while the sun beat down on my back. I tried to call out, but my voice came out as a whisper. My neighbor's dog started barking, probably saw me through the fence. Good boy, smart boy. Time went strange after that. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. I heard footsteps, voices, someone saying my name from very far away. Mrs. Chen from next door. She must have seen me fall. Thank God for nosy neighbors with good hearts. "Lorraine, oh my God, don't move. I'm calling 911. I couldn't have moved if I wanted to. The ambulance came with sirens that hurt my ears.
Hands lifting me, voices asking questions I couldn't answer, someone checking my pulse, my eyes, saying words like unresponsive and possible stroke that made my stomach drop. Not a stroke. Please God, not a stroke. The hospital smelled like antiseptic in fear. They wheeled me through fluorescent-lit hallways that all looked the same, into a room with machines that beeped and hummed, needles in my arms, oxygen in my nose, voices talking over me like I was already gone. A doctor came. Young, rushed, tired eyes. "Mrs. Parker, can you hear me? Squeeze my hand if you understand." I squeezed. Barely. "Good. You're at County General. You collapsed. We're running tests now." County General. The hospital where I had worked for over 2 decades. Where I had held dying hands and celebrated new births and learned that life was fragile and precious and easily lost. Now, I was on the other side of that equation. They called Terrence. I heard the nurse leave a message. "Your mother's been admitted. Please call back as soon as possible." 2 hours passed before my phone rang at the nurse's station. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I saw the nurse's face shift from concern to something else. Annoyance? Disappointment? She came to my bedside with a forced smile. "Your son is on his way. He and his wife will be here soon." His wife. Of course she'd come too. Couldn't let Terrence face his dying mother alone, could she? The tests came back while I waited. The doctor returned with results and a carefully neutral expression. "Mrs. Parker, you have severe electrolyte imbalances and your heart is showing signs of stress. Your blood pressure is dangerously low. Have you been eating properly? Taking your medications?" I had been. I wasn't neglecting myself. But sometimes the body just gives out, doesn't it? Sometimes you can do everything right and still fall apart. He continued, "We need to monitor you closely. The next 24 to 48 hours are critical." Critical. That word hung in the air like a threat. I wanted to ask if I was dying, but I was too afraid of the answer. When Terrence finally walked through that door 3 hours later, I tried to smile, tried to show him I was okay, that he didn't need to worry. But he wasn't looking at me with worry. He was looking at me like I was a problem he hadn't planned for. And Cynthia, she stood behind him checking her phone, already bored with my crisis. That's when I knew, whatever happened next, I was going through it alone.
They thought I was asleep. That's the thing about hospital beds. They make you look more helpless than you are. The medication had made me drowsy, my body heavy and uncooperative. My eyes were closed, my breathing steady. To anyone watching, I was unconscious. But I could hear everything. Terrence stood at the foot of my bed, close enough that I could smell his cologne, the expensive kind Cynthia probably bought him. She was beside him, her heels clucking against the linoleum floor as she shifted her weight. "How long did they say?" Cynthia's voice was low, but hospital rooms have a way of carrying whispers. "They're not sure. Could be days, could be weeks. They said the next 48 hours will tell them more." Terrence sounded tired, not sad, tired, like I was an inconvenience keeping him from something more important. "And if she doesn't wake up properly?" Cynthia pressed. Silence, the kind that screams louder than words. My heart monitor beeped steadily, betraying nothing of the panic rising in my chest. "I don't know," Terrence finally said. "They mentioned long-term care facilities if she needs constant monitoring." "Those places are expensive." Cynthia's tone sharpened. "And you know, we can't afford expensive right now." I felt my son's weight shift. Through my barely opened eyelids, I saw him run his hand over his face, a gesture he'd done since childhood when he was stressed. "I know, Cyn. I know. Does she have insurance? Savings?" "Some, but it's complicated." "What's complicated about it?" She was getting impatient now. I could hear it in the way her words clipped at the edges. Terrence moved closer to my bed.
I felt his presence, wanted so badly to reach out and grab his hand like I used to when he was small and scared. But I stayed still, playing dead while my heart broke. "She's been tight with her money lately," he said quietly. "Ever since the wedding, actually. I asked her for help with the business last year, and she gave me some excuse about retirement planning. Retirement planning. The $15,000 he never paid back. The loans I took for his education. The sacrifices that had no price tag but cost me everything." "So she's been holding out on you?" Cynthia's voice dripped with disdain. "I wouldn't say holding out, just, I don't know. She's different now. Distant." I wanted to scream. I'm distant? Me? But I kept still. Kept listening. Because sometimes you need to hear the truth, even when it destroys you. Cynthia moved closer. I could smell her perfume, floral and cloying, too much as always. "Terrence, baby, we need to be realistic here." Her voice softened, became almost gentle. Manipulation dressed up as concern. "The business is bleeding money. We're 3 months behind on our mortgage. The investors are asking questions we can't answer." "I know," he said again, more desperate this time. "And if your mother needs long-term care, that's going to drain whatever resources she has left. Resources that could have helped us get back on our feet." The machine beside me continued its steady beeping. Each beep marked another second of my son's silence. "What are you saying, Sin?" "I'm saying..." She paused, and I could feel the weight of what was coming. "I'm saying maybe it would be better if she just didn't wake up fully." The room went cold, or maybe that was just me, freezing from the inside out. "Jesus, Cynthia. I'm not saying anything terrible. I'm being practical. Your mother is 67 years old. She's lived a full life. If she's going to be in pain, if she's going to suffer in some facility somewhere, wouldn't it be more merciful to just let nature take its course?" Let nature take its course. That's what you call murder when you want to sound compassionate. "I can't believe you're saying this." But Terrence's voice was weak, uncertain. "I'm saying what you're thinking. Don't act like you haven't considered it. If she passes, there's no more burden, no more difficult decisions. The house, her savings, whatever she has left, it would help us get out of this hole. And she wouldn't want you to suffer, would she? Wouldn't want him to suffer, as if my existence was his suffering." I heard Terrence let out a long breath. "The doctor said there's a good chance she'll recover." Doctors say a lot of things. Cynthia's heels clicked again. She was pacing now, strategizing. But recovery at her age means what? She comes home weak, needing help, needing money for medications and care. How does that help anyone? "She's my mother, and you're her son, which means you get to make the hard choices if it comes to that. Medical power of attorney, Terrence. You have it, don't you?" A pause. "Yes." "Then use it wisely." My eyes burned with tears I couldn't let fall. Couldn't let them see. Couldn't let them know I heard every word. The nurse came in then, breaking whatever dark spell they were weaving. Professional, cheerful, checking my vitals and adjusting my IV. "She's stable for now. Vitals are looking better, actually. Dr. Hamilton will be in shortly to discuss next steps." "Thank you," Terrence said, sounding relieved, but I didn't know if he was relieved I was stable or relieved the conversation ended. After the nurse left, Cynthia spoke again, quieter this time. "Just think about what I said. For both of you." Their footsteps faded. The door closed. And I lay there in my hospital bed, more alone than I had ever been in my entire life. My son, my baby, my pride, my everything, had just stood there and listened to his wife suggest letting me die. And he hadn't said no. 3 days. That's how long it took for them to start planning my funeral while I was still breathing. The medication kept me in that strange twilight place, aware but unable to respond the way I wanted. My words came out slurred when they came at all. My movements were slow, clumsy. To everyone else, I looked like someone barely holding on. But my mind, crystal clear, painfully, devastatingly clear. Dr. Hamilton had been by earlier that morning. She was a tall black woman with kind eyes and steady hands, the type of doctor I'd always wanted to be if life had given me different cards. She'd checked my chart, examined me thoroughly, and spoke directly to me, not over me like I was already gone. "Mrs. Parker, your body's been through significant stress, but you're responding to treatment. We're optimistic." She squeezed my hand. "Just rest. Let yourself heal." After she left, I drifted in and out. Nurses came and went. I heard announcements in the hallway, machines beeping in other rooms, the general symphony of a hospital trying to keep people alive. Then Terrence and Cynthia returned, and I heard something that made me wish I'd stayed asleep. They walked in carrying coffee and a notebook. A notebook. I kept my eyes mostly closed, just a sliver of vision so I could see them settling into the chairs beside my bed. Cynthia pulled out the notebook, clicked her pen like she was about to take meeting notes. "Okay," she said, voice all business. "The funeral director said we need to make some decisions soon if we want to lock in current prices." Funeral director. I was breathing right there in front of them, oxygen tube in my nose, monitor confirming I was very much alive, and they were shopping for my casket. Terrence cleared his throat. "Sin, maybe we should wait until..." "Until what? Until prices go up? Terrence, we need to be smart about this. Your mother would want us to be practical." Would I? Would I want my son counting pennies over my corpse before it existed? She flipped through the notebook. "The Eternal Rest package includes the service, flowers, and burial plot for $12,000. But if we go with the garden plot instead of the family section, we can save $3,000. The family section is where my grandmother is buried. And the garden section is just as nice, more modern, better maintained." Cynthia's pen scratched across paper. "Plus, the savings give us room for the reception." "Reception? People will expect food after the service, Terrence. We can't look cheap." "Can't look cheap at my funeral." That was her concern. Not grief, not loss, optics. I wanted to sit up and scream, wanted to tear that notebook from her hands and throw it across the room. But my body was a prison, and all I could do was lie there and listen. "What about the casket?" Terrence asked, and my heart cracked a little more. "They have a gold trim option that's really elegant. Your mother always tried to look classy. This fits her." Tried to look classy. Past tense, like I was already a memory instead of a woman whose chest was rising and falling 3 feet away from them. How much? $4,000 for the gold trim, but it includes satin lining and an engraved nameplate. Worth it, I think. People will see it. People will see it. Everything was about performance, about what people would think, what people would say, not about the woman who had given her son everything. Cynthia turned a page. "And for the service itself, I was thinking Pastor Michael's. He has that deep voice that makes everything sound meaningful. And we should choose 3 or 4 people to speak. Maybe your cousin? What's his name? David?" "David would be good. And we'll need photos for the program. Do you have any recent ones where she looks, healthy?" Healthy. Before she became an inconvenience. "There are some from Christmas," Terrence offered. "Perfect. I'll design the program myself, cheaper than hiring someone, and I can control the aesthetic. Cream cardstock, maybe a gold foil border to match the casket. They were coordinating my funeral like a wedding, color schemes and all. What about music? Cynthia continued. Traditional hymns or something more contemporary? Mama loved gospel. Precious Lord was her favorite. Was. Past tense again. At least he remembered that much. Gospel works, Cynthia said, making a note. Creates the right emotional atmosphere. We want people moved, not bored. The right emotional atmosphere. My death was being directed like a theater production. Terrence shifted in his chair. This feels weird, Cyn. Talking about this while she's right here. She can't hear us, baby. The nurses said she's barely responsive. Barely responsive didn't mean dead, didn't mean gone, didn't mean my ears stopped working. Still, Terrence, her voice sharpened, we've been over this. If we wait until after, we'll be making decisions in grief and spending money we don't have. This is the responsible thing to do. Responsible. That word kept coming up, twisted into shapes it was never meant to fit. And speaking of money, she continued, voice dropping lower, have you thought about what we discussed about the house? My house, the one I bought with my own money, the one where I raised my son, celebrated his birthdays, kissed his skinned knees, taught him how to be a man. We can't sell it right away, Terrence said. That would look bad. I'm not saying immediately, but once everything's settled, a few months maybe, we list it. The market's strong right now. That neighborhood is gentrifying. We could get $400,000, maybe more. $400,000? That's what my life's work had been reduced to? A real estate opportunity? And the life insurance? Cynthia pressed. $50,000, but that has to cover funeral costs and... Which is why we're being careful with the funeral budget. Every dollar we save there is a dollar toward the mortgage, the business, getting our lives back on track. Our lives, not mine, because mine was already over in their eyes. I lay there feeling my rage build like a fever, feeling my heart pound against my ribs, feeling the machines around me register every spike of emotion I couldn't express. And then, like an angel walking through hell, Dr. Hamilton opened the door. She looked at Terrence and Cynthia, at the notebook in Cynthia's lap, at the funeral home brochure I could now see peeking out from her bag. Her expression shifted, just slightly, but I saw it. She knew. Good afternoon, Dr. Hamilton said, professional and cool. I have Mrs. Parker's latest results. Cynthia closed her notebook quickly, like a child caught with stolen candy. How is she? Terrence asked, standing. Dr. Hamilton looked at me, really looked at me, and something passed between us. A recognition. A promise. Actually, she said, her voice carrying through the room like a verdict, much better than expected. Cynthia's face went pale. In fact, Dr. Hamilton continued, eyes still on mine, Mrs. Parker is recovering faster than we anticipated. Her vitals have stabilized completely. Brain function is excellent. We expect full cognitive recovery. The air left the room. Full recovery? Cynthia's voice cracked on the last word. Yes. Dr. Hamilton smiled, not at them, at me. She'll be walking, talking, and going home within the week. I watched my son's face collapse, watched Cynthia grip her notebook like it was a life raft in stormy seas. And for the first time in 3 days, I smiled. They'd planned my funeral, but I was about to plan my resurrection.
The transformation was immediate and nauseating. One moment, Cynthia was clutching her funeral planning notebook like a script she'd rehearsed.
The next, she was at my bedside, hand over her mouth, eyes glistening with what I suppose was meant to look like relief. "Oh, thank God!" she breathed. "Mrs. Parker, we were so worried." Liar. Terrence moved slower, like his body was fighting what his mind knew he should do. He came to the other side of my bed, reached for my hand. His palm was sweaty. "Mama," his voice cracked. "I'm so glad you're okay. We've been praying every day." Praying. The only prayers they'd been offering were prayers for my death certificate. Dr. Hamilton stood at the foot of my bed, watching them with an expression I'd seen 1,000 times during my nursing career. The look medical professionals get when they can smell family dysfunction but have to stay professional. "Mrs. Parker will need rest and monitoring for another few days," she said crisply, "but barring any complications, she should make a full recovery." "That's wonderful news," Cynthia gushed, squeezing my shoulder a little too hard. "Isn't it, Terrence?" "Yeah, wonderful." He couldn't meet my eyes. Dr. Hamilton made a note on her chart. "I'll leave you all to visit, but please keep it brief. She needs her strength." After she left, an awkward silence filled the room, the kind of silence that screams louder than words. I decided to break it. "Water?" I managed, my voice raspy but clearer than it had been in days. Terrence jumped up like he'd been shocked. "Of course, Mama. Let me get you some." He fumbled with the pitcher on the bedside table, nearly dropping the cup twice. His hands shook as he held the straw to my lips. I drank slowly, watching them both over the rim of the cup. Cynthia had moved to the window, staring out at the parking lot like she was calculating escape routes. "How long have I been here?" I asked, even though I knew. 4 days, Terrence said. "You scared us, Mama." Scared them. Yes, I suppose coming back from the dead would be scary when you've already spent the insurance money in your mind. "The doctor said you collapsed in your garden," Cynthia added, turning from the window with a concerned expression that looked practiced in a mirror. "You should have called us sooner if you weren't feeling well." Should have called them. The son who didn't answer his phone for weeks, and the daughter-in-law who treated my calls like spam. "Didn't want to bother you," I said, each word deliberate. "I know how busy you both are." Something flickered in Terrence's eyes. Shame, maybe, or just fear that I heard something I shouldn't have. "You're never a bother, Mrs. Parker," Cynthia said sweetly. Too sweetly, like artificial sugar trying to pass for real. Family takes care of family. Family. That word tasted like poison coming from her mouth. "Thank you," I whispered, letting my eyes drift closed, not because I was tired, but because I couldn't look at them anymore with my rage showing. I heard them shift, uncomfortable. "Should we let her rest?" Cynthia asked in a stage whisper. Yeah, we should. Terrence's relief was palpable. "We'll come back tomorrow, Mama." I kept my eyes closed, felt him lean down and kiss my forehead. The kiss felt like an apology, or maybe a goodbye he didn't get to say the first time. Their footsteps moved toward the door. "Oh, Mrs. Parker!" Cynthia's voice stopped me from relaxing. "We were wondering about your paperwork. You know, medical directives, power of attorney, just in case something like this happens again, for your protection." There it was, the real reason for the concern. I opened my eyes and looked directly at her. Let her see that I wasn't as confused as they hoped. "Already taken care of," I said clearly. Her smile faltered. "Oh, when did you—" "Last year, after the wedding." The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. "You never mentioned that," Terrence said quietly. "Didn't think I needed to. I was healthy then. Didn't plan on dying anytime soon." The word dying hung between us like an accusation. Cynthia recovered first, that fake smile plastered back on. Well, that's good. Very responsible. We just want to make sure you're taken care of. I'm sure you do. They left after that, their performance exhausted, their true faces starting to show through the cracks. I lay there in my hospital bed, listening to their voices fade down the hallway, probably already arguing about what already taken care of meant. When the nurse came by an hour later to check my vitals, she was the one who had been there during their funeral planning conversation. A young woman with tired eyes and a knowing look. "Your blood pressure is up," she noted, adjusting my IV, then quieter. "You heard them, didn't you, the other day?" I looked at her. She looked back, no judgment in her eyes, just the weary recognition of someone who'd seen too many families show their true colors in hospital rooms. "Every word," I admitted. She nodded slowly. "Then you know." "I know." She squeezed my hand. "Good. Sometimes we need to know even when it hurts, especially when it hurts." After she left, I stared at the ceiling and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the fury. But underneath all of that, something else was growing. Power. They thought I was weak, thought I was finished, thought they could plan around me like I was already gone. They had no idea who they were dealing with. I'd survived poverty, racism, single motherhood, and 23 years of night shifts that tried to break my body. I raised a son alone, built a life from nothing, and learned how to smile through pain that would have destroyed weaker people. And now I was going to teach them what happens when you underestimate an old black woman with nothing left to lose and everything left to fight for. Recovery came in pieces. Each day, I got a little stronger, a little clearer, a little more dangerous. My cousin Yvette visited on day 5. She swept in like a warm breeze, carrying Tupperware containers that smelled like heaven and love. "Baby girl," she said, setting up a feast on my rolling table. "These hospital people trying to starve you. I brought real food." Collard greens, cornbread, mac and cheese that made the nurse who helped set it up groan with envy. "You're an angel," I told her. "No, I'm just your cousin who actually gives a damn." She settled into the chair, her sharp eyes scanning my face. "Now tell me what's really going on. And don't say you're fine, because I know that's a lie." So I told her. Everything. The overheard conversations, the funeral planning, the fake concern. Yvette's face went through every emotion: shock, rage, disbelief, and finally a cold determination I recognized from our grandmother. "That boy, after everything you did for him, and that woman, I never liked her, had a snake's eyes from day 1. You told me that at the wedding, and you should have listened." She softened. "But mothers don't want to see the bad in their babies. I get it." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of betrayal settling between us. "Loran," Yvette said carefully, "what about your will? Your house? Please tell me you protected yourself." I smiled. "Last year, after Terrence got distant, I had a feeling. Changed everything. Set up a trust." "Smart woman." "Careful woman. There's a difference." Yvette leaned forward. "Does he know?" "Not the details, but he's about to find out." She grinned. "Good. Let that boy squirm." After Yvette left, I had another visitor, one I didn't expect. Dr. Hamilton came in during her rounds, closed the door behind her, and sat down with the kind of heaviness that meant she had something to say. "Mrs. Parker, I'm going to be direct with you because I think you can handle it." "I appreciate that." "Your son came to the nurse's station yesterday, asked about your prognosis, your care plan, and then," she paused, "he asked about medical power of attorney, specifically when it could be activated." My stomach clenched. "What did you tell him?" "That you're fully competent and recovering beautifully. so it's not applicable. But Mrs. Parker, I've been a doctor for 15 years. I know what that question means. I know what I saw when I walked in on them with that notebook. You heard them too. Enough. Her jaw tightened. I can't get involved in family matters officially, but off the record, you need to protect yourself, legally, immediately. I have a will. Not just a will. Documentation, witnesses, clear directives that can't be challenged. Because if something happens and you become incapacitated again, she didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. You think they'd actually? I think people do terrible things when money's involved. And I think your son is being controlled by a woman who sees you as a problem to solve, not a person to protect. The truth of it hit me like a physical blow. Dr. Hamilton stood. I have a colleague, a state attorney. Very good, very discreet. I can have her contact you if you'd like. Yes, please. She nodded, squeezed my shoulder. You deserve better than this, Mrs. Parker. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. That night, I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about what Dr. Hamilton said, about what Terrence had asked. When it could be activated? Not if. When? He was waiting for another chance, another crisis, another opportunity to make decisions while I was helpless. But I wasn't helpless anymore, and I wasn't going to wait for him to try again. The next morning, the attorney called. Her name was Miss Bennett, and she was all business. Dr. Hamilton briefed me on your situation. I can be there this afternoon if you're feeling up to it. I'm up to it. Good. Bring any documentation you have. We're going to make sure your wishes are ironclad. No one will be able to touch your assets or make medical decisions without your explicit consent. How long will this take? A few hours for the paperwork, but Mrs. Parker, the protection starts immediately. I hung up feeling something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. Not hope that my son would change. That ship had sailed and sunk. But hope that I could survive this, that I could come out on the other side with my dignity, my home, and my life intact. They thought they were planning my funeral. I was planning my future. And they weren't invited.
Miss Bennett arrived at 3 o'clock with a briefcase and an expression that said she'd seen worse, but not by much. She was a petite black woman with silver locks and eyes that missed nothing. The kind of woman who'd fought her way through law school and every courtroom after, and had the scars and victories to prove it. Mrs. Parker, she shook my hand firmly. Let's make sure your son learns an expensive lesson about greed. I liked her immediately. We spent 2 hours going over everything, my current will, my assets, my wishes. She asked questions I hadn't thought about, covered scenarios I'd been too scared to imagine. Your trust is solid, she confirmed, reviewing my existing documents, but we're going to add some teeth to it. Medical directives that specify exactly who can and cannot make decisions for you, a durable power of attorney that explicitly excludes your son unless certain conditions are met, and a statement of intent that makes your wishes crystal clear. Will it hold up if he challenges it? Honey, by the time I'm done, if he tries to challenge this, he'll need to prove you were mentally incompetent. And given that you're literally recovering from a health crisis while making these decisions, she smiled sharply, any judge will see right through it. What about Cynthia? Spouse has no legal standing regarding your estate, unless you grant it, which you won't be doing. She gets nothing. Zero. Not even the satisfaction of knowing what you left behind. The strength in her voice gave me courage. We finished the paperwork just as visiting hours began. Perfect timing. One more thing, Miss Bennett said, packing up her briefcase. Would you like me to stay? For the conversation? The conversation? Mrs. Parker, your son is going to have questions, and sometimes having legal representation present keeps people honest. I thought about it, about Terrence's face when he realized what I'd done, about Cynthia's rage when her plans crumbled.
Yes, I decided. Stay. She settled back into her chair just as Terrence and Cynthia walked through the door. They stopped short when they saw Miss Bennet, the professional briefcase, the legal pads, the unmistakable atmosphere of business being conducted. "Mama?" Terrence's voice was uncertain. "What's going on?" "Come in," I said, my voice stronger than it had been all week. "We need to talk." Cynthia's eyes narrowed. "Who's this?" Miss Bennet stood, extended her hand. "Miranda Bennet, a state attorney. I've been helping Mrs. Parker with some important documentation." Neither of them took her hand. "Documentation?" Cynthia's voice pitched higher. "What kind of documentation?" "The kind that protects my interests," I said calmly, "since I'm recovering and wanted to make sure everything was in order." Terrence moved closer to the bed. "Mama, you should have called me. We could have helped with this." "Could you?" I let the question hang. He flinched. Miss Bennet pulled out a folder. "Mrs. Parker has asked me to provide you both with copies of her updated directives. These outline her medical wishes, her estate plans, and the distribution of her assets." She handed Terrence a thick packet of papers. He opened it with shaking hands, eyes scanning the first page. I watched his face drain of color. "A trust?" He voice cracked. "You put everything in a trust?" "For my future grandchildren, to be managed by an independent trustee until they come of age." "Future grandchildren?" Cynthia grabbed the papers from Terrence. "What about your actual son, the one who's here, who's been taking care of you?" "Taking care of me?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Is that what you call planning my funeral while I was unconscious?" The room went silent. Terrence's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "I heard you," I continued, my voice steady and cold. "Both of you, discussing caskets and flower arrangements and how much money you'd make from selling my house. Well, I was lying right there, fighting to survive. Mama, we were just preparing, being realistic, making hard choices." I threw their words back at them. "Let me tell you what you were really doing. You were counting me dead before my heart stopped beating. You were dividing up my life like it was already over." Cynthia's face rushed red. "We were stressed. We didn't mean—" "You meant every word." I looked at my son. "Terrence, I gave you everything. Every opportunity, every sacrifice, every dollar I ever earned went into making sure you had a better life than I did. And the moment I became inconvenient, you stood there and listened to your wife suggest letting me die." "I never said that," he protested weakly. "You didn't have to. You didn't say no. And that told me everything I needed to know." Miss Bennet cleared her throat. "The trust also includes provisions that if Mrs. Parker is placed in any medical facility or receives any care, costs will be covered directly by the trust. You will have no financial responsibility or access." "Access?" Cynthia's voice was shrill now. "She's shutting us out? After everything we've done?" "Everything you've done?" I repeated slowly. "Like asking about medical power of attorney so you could pull the plug? Like calculating how fast you could sell my house? Like treating my funeral as a networking opportunity?" Terrence's eyes were wet. "Mama, I'm sorry. I was scared. The business is failing, we're drowning in debt, and You just what? Decided my death was the solution to your problems?" He broke then, dropped into the chair, head in his hands. I didn't know what to do. Cynthia kept saying, I don't want to hear what Cynthia kept saying. I looked at her. "I want you both to hear this clearly. You will not inherit my house. You will not access my savings. You will not make decisions about my medical care. I've made sure that legally, and Miss Bennet has made sure it's airtight." Cynthia's face twisted with rage. This is ridiculous. We're your family. Family doesn't plan funerals for the living. Family doesn't pray for convenient deaths. Family doesn't measure love in dollars and property values. So what? She threw down the papers. You're just cutting us off after Terrence has been your whole life? No. I met my son's eyes. I'm protecting myself from people who saw me as an inheritance instead of a human being. Miss Bennet stood. I think we're done here. Mrs. Parker needs her rest, and you both need to understand that these documents are filed, notarized, and legally binding. Any attempt to contest them will be costly and unsuccessful. Terrence stood slowly. Mama, please, can we talk about this? We are talking about it, and I've said everything I need to say. But I'm your son. Yes, you're my son, and that's why this hurts more than anything else in my life ever has. Because I would have died for you, Terrence, would have given you my last breath. But you couldn't even wait for my last heartbeat before dividing up what I left behind. He reached for my hand. I pulled away. Don't, I whispered. Please, don't. Cynthia grabbed his arm. Come on, we're leaving. Your mother has clearly made her choice. I'm making the choice you both already made. I'm just doing it while I'm still alive to see it. They left. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like an ending. Miss Bennet sat back down, handed me tissues I didn't realize I needed. That was incredibly brave, she said gently. It was incredibly necessary, I corrected, wiping my eyes. Yes, but both can be true. After she left, I sat in my hospital bed watching the sunset through the window. My son was gone, my family fractured, my heart broken into pieces I wasn't sure would ever fit back together again. But I was alive, and more importantly, I was free.
I went home on a Thursday. Yvette picked me up, fussed over me the whole drive, had my house cleaned and my fridge stocked before I even walked through the door. "You're staying with me," she announced. "Yvette, I'm fine." For 2 weeks, non-negotiable, doctor's orders. She wasn't lying. Dr. Hamilton had suggested supervision during my initial recovery. So I packed a bag and moved into Yvette's guest room. Let myself be taken care of for the first time in decades. It felt strange. Wrong, almost. I was the caretaker, the strong one, the mother who solved problems instead of creating them. But my body was tired, and my heart was exhausted. Terrence called 3 times that first week. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Every time his name appeared on my screen, I heard him discussing gold-trimmed caskets and garden plots. He left voicemails. "Mama, please, I need to explain. I know I messed up. Just let me talk to you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Sorry. That word felt empty, like trying to fill a canyon with a teaspoon of water. On the 10th day, he showed up at Yvette's house, alone, without Cynthia. Yvette answered the door, blocked him like a bodyguard. "She doesn't want to see you." "Please, Yvette, I'm begging. 5 minutes." I heard them from the living room, heard the desperation in my son's voice. It tugged at something deep in my chest, that ancient maternal instinct that wanted to comfort him, even when he'd hurt me. "Let him in," I called out. Yvette gave me a look that said I was making a mistake. Maybe I was, but he was still my child, and some wounds need air before they can heal. Terrence came in looking hollowed out, thinner, older, broken in ways that had nothing to do with age. He stood in the doorway like he didn't know if he was allowed to come closer. "Sit down," I said quietly. He sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped between his knees like a child called to the principal's office. "Cynthia left me. I didn't ask why, didn't need to. When the money disappeared, so did she." "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it.
Not because she left, but because he was hurting. You're not. He looked up, eyes red. And you shouldn't be. You were right about her. About everything. Being right doesn't make me happy, Terrence. I know. His voice cracked. Mama, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I was weak and stupid and scared, and I let someone twist me into a person you didn't raise me to be. Yes, you did. He flinched at the truth. But here's what you need to understand. I didn't cut you out of my will to punish you. I did it to protect myself. Because I can't trust you anymore, Terrence. And trust isn't something you can apologize back into existence. Can I earn it back? I looked at my son, really looked at him. Saw the boy who used to hold my hand and the man who'd let me down. Both existed in the same body, fighting for dominance. Maybe, I said honestly, but it'll take years, not days. And I won't be waiting around hoping you change. I'm going to live my life, protect my peace, and if you want to be part of that, you'll have to prove you've grown into someone worthy of it. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I'll prove it, however long it takes. We'll see. He stood to leave, paused at the door. I love you, Mama. I know I showed you the opposite, but I do. I love you too, I admitted. That's why this hurt so much. After he left, Yvette came back in with tea and knowing eyes. You okay? No, I said honestly, but I will be. Yes, you will, because you're stronger than all of them put together. I smiled, believed her, let myself imagine a future where my son earned back his place in my life. But I didn't count on it. Some broken things stay broken, and that's okay too.
6 months later, I'm sitting in my garden again. The tomatoes are coming in beautiful, fat and red and perfect. I joined a church group, made new friends who knew nothing about my son, except that we're working through things. I started therapy, learned that boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges you only let certain people cross. I volunteer at the hospital now, helping families navigate the confusion and fear that comes with crisis. Sometimes I see myself in their worried faces. Sometimes I see my son in their children's impatient eyes. I teach them what I learned. Love without wisdom is just permission to be hurt. Terrence texts now and then, short messages, thinking of you, hope you're well. I respond because I'm not cruel, but I don't open doors he hasn't earned the right to walk through yet. He's in therapy too. Sold the business, got a regular job, paying off debts the honest way. Baby steps toward being the man I raised him to be before Cynthia and greed rewrote his character. Maybe one day we'll rebuild something. Maybe not. Either way, I'm at peace. Because here's what I want you to understand, whoever's listening to this story. Family is not defined by blood alone. It's defined by loyalty, compassion, and presence. Real presence, not the kind that shows up when there's something to inherit. Love given blindly becomes weakness. Love given wisely becomes strength. Never let anyone rush your exit from a story God still needs you to finish. And if you ever find yourself lying in a hospital bed, listening to people plan your funeral while your heart's still beating, wake up, fight back, protect yourself. Because you deserve better than people who measure your worth by what you can leave them when you're gone. I'm Lorraine Parker. I'm 67 years old, retired, alive, and learning every day that the strongest thing you can do is walk away from people who treat your life like a countdown clock, even when those people are your own blood. If this story touched you, if it made you think about your own relationships and boundaries, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are.
Your support keeps these stories coming. And remember, protect your peace, guard your heart, and never apologize for surviving people who wanted you gone. Lastly, download your ebook titled Suspense and Family Drama Short Stories by clicking the link in the pinned comment. Thank you for listening. And to anyone out there dealing with family betrayal, you're not alone, you're not wrong, and you're stronger than you know. Take care of yourselves.